The human body is an open thermodynamic system. To maintain life, it must constantly intake energy and export waste, operating far from equilibrium in a continuous battle against information entropy. Ancient texts refer to these systemic flaws as samskaras. Biophysically, these represent structural fault lines in the biological hardware, sites where energy leakage and circulatory degradation occur. Everyday psychological and environmental stressors compound this issue. They strike these fault lines, generating systemic noise that pulls our biology further away from a stable quantum state. Repairing this damage requires a targeted mechanism capable of reordering the system's chaotic output at its structural foundation. At its core, human suffering is a problem of unregulated information physics, the direct physiological experience of excess entropy. Vedic chanting is traditionally categorized as a religious invocation. However, an examination of the strict physical protocols in these rituals reveals a technological intervention engineered entirely around acoustic resonance. This diagram outlines the governing cybernetic equation of that technology. A phase-state transition requires three precise inputs. First, energy, the acoustic wave of the chant. Second, geometry, defined by strict mathematical meter. Third, time, the biological readiness of the hardware. Executing this equation forces the human system to shed accumulated noise and return toward a zero-point vacuum state, designated as the bindu. Within this framework, mantras operate as executable code designed to reprogram chaotic biological hardware. In calculus, a smoothing operator takes a discontinuous, erratic function and forces it into a well-behaved continuous shape. A stressed nervous system produces chaotic, unpredictable spikes. The mathematical rhythm of a mantra acts as a smooth Gaussian kernel, sliding over that jagged noise. This physical convolution averages out the spikes, transforming fragmented biological data into a continuous, differentiable wave. The Vedic term for this rigid mathematical structure is chandas. It dictates exact syllable counts, ensuring the smoothing kernel maintains its precise geometric shape. The act of repetition, known as japa, serves as the mechanical engine of this process. It drags the perfect mathematical rhythm across the nervous system, pass after pass. The acoustic pressure filters out entropy, turning a fragmented physiological state into a continuous, flowing system. Adjusting the syllable count of the chant dictates the distinct geometric output produced in the physical environment. This animation represents the Anustubh meter. It consists of exactly 32 syllables, broken into 4 lines of 8, a mathematically symmetric architecture. That symmetry generates a state of physiological homeostasis. It establishes a protective, anti-entropic shield optimized for routine cellular repair. Contrast that with the Nikrit Tristut meter. Because it falls deliberately short of a standard 44-syllable structure, it introduces an intentional mathematical deficiency. That metrical deficit creates tonal tension. Rather than a stable sphere, the sound generates an asymmetrical centripetal vortex. By generating a focused, non-linear resonance, the mantra applies mechanical stress to disordered regions of the matrix, destabilizing the entrenched rigidity of the fault lines. The raw mathematical syllable count dictates whether the acoustic wave stabilizes a healthy state or forces the disruption of a disordered one. To understand how an acoustic sound wave can physically alter solid tissue and genetics, we have to examine fluid dynamics. This is a biosoliton, a self-reinforcing wave packet. Unlike standard ripples that lose energy, a soliton maintains exact shape and velocity while traveling through fluid. Strict Vedic phonetic rhythms force chaotic acoustic waves to collapse into these highly ordered biosolitons inside the body. Because they do not dissipate, these waves travel seamlessly through the body's dense fascial networks and cellular water matrices. The ultimate target is the DNA double helix. Solitons travel precisely along its backbone, their physical momentum facilitating the unwinding of the helix. Mantras are mechanically transmitted into the genetic code via biosoliton waves, acting as physical restructuring tools. This chart visualizes the Giesecke-Meier biophysical model. It maps exactly 12 life-sustaining eigenfrequency bands, separated by chaotic, jagged gaps of noise. To maintain cellular coherence, biological systems must remain locked within these specific frequency corridors. Drifting into the gaps introduces rapid destabilization. Overlaying the Vedic metric syllable counts, like 24, 32, and 44, reveals that they align with these exact coherent eigenfrequency bands. This identical architecture appears in the Kashmir Shaivism doctrine of Kroma, a philosophy based on sequential progression, historically represented by the 12 Kalis. These figures map 12 strict thermodynamic phase state transitions. The biological unwinding process is sequential. The system hits a frequency band, stabilizes, eliminates its internal entropy, and only then jumps the gap to the next tier. The 12-step sequence of the Krama school provides a framework aligning with these discrete biological intervals. It identifies the specific resonant plateaus a system must reach to successfully transition from a chaotic to a coherent state. The core equation governing this process relies on a time variable. Biophysical unwinding cannot happen instantly. In material science, this delay is known as relaxation time. Biological hardware needs sustained, rhythmic time to safely damp out years of accumulated structural friction. Once that friction is cleared, the system can approach the final destination of the unwinding process, the bindu. Scientifically, the bindu is the zero-point quantum vacuum, a state of absolute zero information entropy, symbolized by the cosmic dance balancing chaos and order. Enlightenment within this framework is defined by perfect impedance matching between the human hardware and the universe's zero-point field. At this threshold, the human hardware operates at its peak attainable level of coherence. The biology serves as a transparent interface, where the internal vibrational signature matches the fundamental fluctuations of the zero-point vacuum field.